Hello, I'm Eileen Roche, co-founder of Designs and Machine Embroidery, and I'm delighted that you've joined me today for this episode of Between Friends. We have a pretty exciting program today. We have a guest, we have a fun technique to explore, and we have some new colors of Kingstar to share with you that I know many people have been asking for and waiting for, and they are finally in the house. So before we go any further, why don't we bring in Sue Brown from OML Embroidery. Hey, Sue.
Hi, Eileen. Oh, I'm so excited to be here. And I heard you say Kingstar metallic new colors.
New colors, and they're bright and beautiful.
Oh, I can't wait. I use it all the time. I can't wait to see what they are.
Yeah. Well, we're going to show them in just a minute. So lots of people. Barbara Nance, hi, Sue. Let's see, Ann Dilbeck, hi, Sue. Ann Philbeck, hello, Sue. You've got lots of friends and fans in the house. Isn't that awesome?
They're all, they're all my people. Yeah,
your people.
I love it.
When you say all my people, you're really talking about the OML gang, right?
Yes.
Isn't that what you call them?
Well, that's what they called themselves. They wanted to be an embroidery gang, and I said, all right. They all voted for it, so that's what it is. So my people, yeah.
We have Sylvia joining in from Puerto Rico, crazy and learning. We love that. Oh, Isabel Briand from France. Wow.
We love Isabel.
Do you? Yeah, she's been following you for a long time, right?
Yes. She's wonderful.
Yeah, I know. And then, but we also have a viewer from where is it? Netherlands, I think. Yeah, here we go. Terry Shopaholic. I don't really think that's her name, but maybe it describes her well. Anyway, we're glad she's here, right?
Yep. Yeah. Definitely. All over the world.
Yeah, and here's my sister-in-law, Kathy Colvin. Never too hot to craft. Boy, you're not kidding. But, you know, she's way up north. She's northern Minnesota, so not exactly Canada, but closer to you than here for sure. So you have been doing these Saturday sew-alongs for a long time, but for Dime, you've been following, you know, we release a new design on Thursday, the last Thursday of the month, and then 2 days later on that Saturday, you do a sew-along. And you started when? With the doors?
With the doors, yeah, the first door even. I just thought it was so cute.
Yeah.
And they look like fairy doors, so I can get everyone inspired to get stitching and have fun and talk about different colors and everything. And then the next month, something else came out. So much fun.
It was so much fun. And, you know, that was in 2020 when COVID really hit. You know, we started in January and just 6 weeks later, you know, the heavens exploded pretty much. So, but I stayed here on Facebook and you did the same on YouTube. And boy, it really helped connect a lot of embroiderers, not just you and I, but, you know, many people.
And my usual fun silliness got people going because it's an exciting class and it's fun and you can ask any question and I'll help out, and it's really good. It's really good.
It really
is. Also, by the time we got to Small Town Charm, which I also really enjoyed, people were starting to feel they're silly and naming their buildings and changing stuff, and it became a lot of fun. And then improving their skills by making a second level to the houses and stuff.
Right.
It was wonderful.
They did so much. I mean, they just shared their creativity and you know, you had Souville, of course. It was like the Halloween town.
No, it's no surprise. It's no surprise.
And then you had your own floral shop. What was that?
Kabloom.
Kabloom, yeah. I mean, it's just so much fun. We really had a lot of fun.
Little fun things that just makes embroidery different than just stitching it out.
Right. Right. And I think it really helped people expand their skill level.
I always try to come up with a new skill and concentrate on them. And all of yours, the doors and everything, they had something a little different in each of them that you could learn from, which was really nice.
Yeah. We've been doing it a long time. I hope we could keep finding new things to teach.
Definitely, we can.
Yeah, we do. We always seem to come up with something. But anyway, I wanted to thank you publicly for your support, how you do this every Saturday after we reveal what's, the on the house project here. And so we really appreciate all your efforts.
Oh, you're welcome. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. And we love two things that you've done, two more things, which is your chicken races, right? The bobbin chicken and the applique chicken. So tell everybody a little bit about them.
We have so much fun with that. Sometimes if I'm not quite paying attention or if I'm using a smaller scrap of fabric, I announce that we're going to play applique chicken, and we're going to see if it covers the placement line. So if it covers it and it's good, you win. If some of it is, not in, then you lose. And then we talk about how to fix it. Bobbin chicken is another thing. I have bobbin police, so I have to show them the bobbin. And then we decide, is it worth playing bobbin chicken or not?
Yeah.
So bobbin chicken is if you run out of bobbin in the middle of it.
Right.
So then you lost. If it goes to the end of what you said it would go to, then you win.
Then you win.
Yep.
And what do we win? Oh,
I don't know. The fact that you didn't have to change a bobbin in the middle of it. I don't know.
Of course,
no, a patch.
A patch, right.
Yep.
But today, so many machines have bobbin sensors, so it tells you when it's going to be out. But not always, right? They can malfunction. And if you're using a paper-sided bobbin, it sometimes can't see that level of bobbin thread and, all different kinds of things. But it is fun to play that. And boy, do I hate it when I'm quilting with my embroidery machine, right? When I have a whole big quilt, like on the weightless quilter, and I'm dead center, and the bobbin runs out. Now I have to manhandle the whole thing and access it. And
I hate it changing a bobbin when I'm live, no matter what I'm working on.
Oh, yeah.
It just takes time and the energy slows down. So I try. I have a bobbin graveyard too, by the way, where if it's half full, I put it in the graveyard and hope to use it later. So I have a full one. Yeah, and they always want to see, can we see the graveyard? I'm like, well, it's kind of full.
Yeah, I guess all my bobbin stashes are actually graveyards, I mean, I have a box of brand new pre-wounds, but anything that I wind myself, I usually winds up in the graveyard because I, need a special color or whatever. Mm-hmm.
I keep my King Star Metallic wound bobbins in a very special place.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
So they go in the vault, right? Not in the graveyard.
Correct. Never would you find a King Star Metallic in the graveyard. No.
That's right. Yeah. Okay, so what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to show the new King Star colors, right? So as you can see, our topic today is quilt as you go, and we are going to get to that, but we're also going to talk about quilting with metallics or just stitching with metallics, right? So let's go ahead over and take a look at these new colors. So here we have all three new colors. They are luscious. Aren't they pretty?
Oh, I love them. Oh my.
They really are just gorgeous. So I'm going to pull out these two and bring in the other purple that already exists in the line, okay? So you can see the difference, right? This is really dark and beautiful, but we felt we really needed something a little lighter, a little brighter, maybe a little bit more spring-like. So that was the idea on this lighter purple. And then next we have the greens. So let's go ahead and take a look at the greens. So this is the existing green that we have. This is kind of like a light sage. And this is our dark Christmas green. And our new green is right in the middle. And we really needed that because, Sue, right, like to work with these two together, that's kind of a funny looking leaf. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. I know.
I love it. I love it.
We're so excited for these colors. They're just beautiful. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the, well, I call them pinks, and maybe they're definitely in the pink family. So here's our new one. These are our existing, the very light one, and then the medium tone, and now this gorgeous bright. Isn't that something? Oh, I love it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And so let's see, we have some questions. Marianne de Blagla says, will we ever have a black king star? Well, I don't know that we'll ever have a black king star, but we will have a gray king star, a deep gray that can work on both black fabric and light fabrics. So the problem with black metallic thread is black fabric, and it always absorbs all the light, and it doesn't let any light bounce off of it. So that's the challenge with a black metallic thread. Nothing bounces off of it, so it kind of looks flat. So we're kind of meeting in the middle, and we will someday introduce what we're calling pewter, but not yet. That's for another class. But here, I did some stitching, so I thought I'd just show you. Look at this gorgeous dragonfly. Is that beautiful? Yeah, so I used the lightest green right here in the well, I'm going to call it underlay, but it's not really. It's just the complex fill that then the highlights are stitched on top of. So just beautiful, all of these together. So that's our new colors, and then the silver, and that's our new pink, that beautiful fuchsia color. And here I stitched some earrings in the 3 colors just because I love metallic earrings, and why not, right?
I love the purple earrings.
Yeah, aren't they? And they're so wearable. So if you have light hair, if you're blonde or silver hair, you know, this color is going to pop. People are going to be able to see it. And also actually with all 3 of these. So, you know, that's always a challenge. What we think will work for a brunette may not work for a redhead, may not work for a blonde. So, so many things to think about, right? So let's take a look at, let's go back over here to the overhead. Just give me a second. I'll get these spools sitting down so you can keep your eye on them. And then I just want to show you, we'll talk a little bit about the kind of embroidery designs that you would, what am I missing here? The purple, right? Where did it go? Oh, here we are. Okay. So as you can see, you know, the wider satins, right? They give off more gleam because there's more surface area for the thread. So if you're going to select or digitize yourself, select a stitch or digitize yourself, think wider when using metallics, because these skinny little satins, they don't really do much for that beautiful metallic. I'm going to pick these up individually so you can see. Even a flat complex fill is not as interesting as the, you know, this motif fill where the light can really play off all those curves. So keep those thoughts in mind. And also undulating curves in satins are more interesting for a metallic than just a plain straight line. We have to, you know, if you're going to go to the trouble of stitching it and paying for a metallic thread, you might as well get the most for your money, right?
Definitely.
Okay, let's see if we have some questions. And Connie Rule wants to know, are these King Star? These are King Stars. So these are 3 new colors of King Star that are now available. And they're just hot and new. So we're so excited about it. Let's see. And Marianne de Blagla, you're happy to hear about the dark gray. Yeah, so that's a good solution, and that'll be coming out down the line. Oh, Susan Adler wants to know, do you use the same color in the bobbin? That's a great question. We're going to talk a little bit more about bobbin work as we go through some other slides. But yes, you can use King Star in the bobbin if you need to. Like if you're doing jewelry, right, then you would probably want King Star in the bobbin also. But if you're doing a quilt block or a garment where the inside or the wrong side of the embroidery is not going to be visible, then there's no real sense in using a metallic in the bobbin. Save your metallic for its, you know, treatment on the top. And I like to match my, if it's quilting, I'll take a similar color of our exquisite polyester thread and use that in the bobbin. And I have a sample that will show you that in a little while. And oh, Robert Larson wants to know, how do you prevent metallics from breaking? Are they brittle and more difficult to use than normal? Well, I imagine Robert has never stitched with a Kingstar thread, right?
That's my guess.
Because Robert, you're correct. Often, if you have been stitching with other brands, you've experienced a lot of thread breakage, and it does feel brittle to the touch. Kingstar is unique in the sense that it is made in Japan, and it's made for the kimono industry. So it's really delicate and fluid. No special needle, no special treatment. Like, you can run it on a horizontal thread spool. You can also thread pin. You can also run it vertically. Whatever your machine tells you to do, you can do. So it is just awesome, just awesome. And it's fluid, right? It just spools off of the spool, like in a circular pattern.
Never had any problems with it ever. Any issues were user issues. You know, a little twist in the somewhere that shouldn't be. It's lovely. You can use it for freestanding lace and put the same thing in the bobbin, and you won't have any problems.
No problems at all. And you can run it at full speed.
Yeah, I never changed my speed.
Yeah, right. I rarely do either. But if you are having problems, just lower the speed. That's all. No big deal. The machine's only going to run as fast as the digitizing. On a satin stitch, it's going to run. Tiny little outlines, it's not going to run at 1,000 stitches a minute. Listen to your machine. It's not always running as fast. So it knows what to do, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what else do we have to share? Okay. Well, I guess that's kind of it on the new colors. But, oh, aren't they beautiful? We love them. We love them. Okay. So now let's go over to talk about quilting with metallics. And I have 4 tips for you. And the first one is go with contrast, right? And I have a good example of why you should do that. So first, I'll show you this table runner, because this is a good example. Let's just get that full screen. Now, believe it or not, this is gold metallic on this terracotta. It looks kind of pink in the screen, but it's really terracotta. You can see it on the dark areas of this fabric. Now, this is a Moda grunge fabric, so it has some light areas and some darker areas. And you can see that thread really well in the dark areas. In the lighter areas, not so much. See how it just blends with that? So that has really nothing to do with color. That's all about value. But over here, where we are in the gold border, I used a turquoise thread, and that you can see all along. You can definitely see that. So if you really wanted to be visible, then you should definitely go for contrast. If you're just adding texture, then you would select a thread that's going to blend with the color of the fabric color. But here's a good example, a bad example, really. So happy to, and it was in the, it was in the promotion. So like, you really can't see that, but this says Mermaid Wisdom here. And I chose silver thread on this light colored fabric, and that's really a total fail. I meant to, redo the block, but I never did, so you'll forgive me. But look at the contrast that this blue gives us from that base fabric. And of course, any kind of contrast that you use, this is even darker still. Now it's really popping, really popping. So that's the one that, the contrast is so important. Okay, so here's another example. Okay, what's our second tip? Our second tip, I think, is, think about thread buildup. Now, thread buildup is where quilting lines merge together. And unlike just, think of an echo quilting where it's continuous outlines surrounding a shape and evenly spaced outlines, right? So it's just, just like I said, echo quilting, right? But thread buildup is where they kind of merge into each other. So I have a couple samples of that, I believe. So here we have, here's echo quilting. all evenly spaced. Now, these are small spaces, so this kind of works, right? But look at this. I mean, this is just 2 circles. That's not much, really not drawing the eye. But what's really drawing your eye is this area where the thread converges and these kind of offset echoes all connect in the center. And that's what, really draws the eye when someone is looking at your quilt or your quilt block. So, a lot of times, depending on what you're doing, if you're going for a ribbon or, you're competing in a show or something, and you want to draw the eye, think about some thread buildup and applying to your project. Okay, next up, now look at this. This is a lot of thread buildup, even satinish, towards the edges. But isn't it gorgeous? I mean, wow. That is just lovely, right? Isn't that pretty, Sue?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. I love that it has openness to it,
Yes.
that you can see the fabric through the leaves and the flowers. That's what I love about that. Yeah.
Yes.
It's really
beautiful.
Cool. Yeah, fun stuff. We're so spoiled to get to do all this fun stuff. Okay, and then next is, I think our next tip is mixing metallics. So I kind of already showed you that sample, but let's go ahead and just take a look at it with a different mindset. So here we have, I'm definitely mixing my colors, and I'm mixing Caesar, that heat transfer vinyl, on this really glittery material here. So this is cotton fabric, cotton quilting fabric, and this HTV, the Caesar glitter, which blends beautifully with our King Star metallics. And I didn't just stop at one color. I have kind of this red going on, and the light blue, and the dark blue, and some silver, added that rose-colored tail. So much fun. So much fun. Yeah. So never hesitate to mix them up. Doesn't have to be all the same color. Okay, and then, so now we're going to talk about bobbin. So this is our 4th tip. And here's the thread that I used on this quilt block, and very pretty, right? Really pops. So I have my contrast going on. I have a little bit of thread buildup in the center. It most certainly draws the eye to the focal point of the center. But on the back, I didn't bother using the King Star. So what I would do is I would use a 40 weight exquisite polyester that kind of blends with the fabric. And that way, I don't have to worry about a white bobbin showing on the top of the fabric, right? I can just, because they're so close together in color, I'm going to get a beautiful result. So that's my 4 good tips for quilting with metallics. Do you do any quilting with metallics, Sue?
I haven't yet, but I'm going to now, because they are all beautiful. What a great idea.
I know. They really are. They're so pretty, especially if you're using solids. Fabrics.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I actually have a few I'm going to do that on.
Are you?
But great ideas. I love it. Couldn't make a quilt any more beautiful.
I know. It's super fun. And so, of course, no surprise here what today's product is. And it's, King Star metallic thread. So all King Star metallic thread is on sale.
Oh, wow.
And that's the individual spools. It's the trios, the quartets. So any of those ones that you've had your eye on, and you've been thinking, when you can afford it, this is the time for sure. So, and if you stock up and, order over $75 worth of product, you get free shipping, which is pretty great. Pretty
wonderful.
Great. Yeah. And so someone had asked earlier, will you show us all the colors? Well, I don't have them like in this space to show you, but this is the image of all the colors now. So you should take a good look at this, look at your thread wall and see what you're missing, and then stock up. And of course, the holiday stitching is coming. Oh my goodness, everybody will be, it's so popular at that time. Okay, so let's see. Robert Larson has another question. He uses the 40 weight polyester thread all the time. And the metallic is considered a 40 weight. And do you need to change the tension? You don't need to adjust the tension at all for King Star thread. I stitch on Baby Lock Brother machines and Janome and also Bernina, and each of those machines accept the King Star wonderfully without any kind of change to tension. So yeah, it's great. How about you on your Luminaire, Sue?
I don't ever change the tension for anything. It just, you end up making a mess and never getting it back to where you want it. There's just no need. The machine compensates for everything.
Yeah. And if you do change your tensions, you know, on many machines, you are able to go back to the factory settings, and that's a good idea. You know, they do know what they're doing. They do know what they're doing.
Yeah. That's how I start on a machine, everything at factory settings. And if I think I need to change something, then change it.
I get it. I get it for sure. Okay, so now let's go ahead over and start talking about, is this where no, I guess what we're going to do right now is I'm going to tell you what's coming up. So Ashley Jones is coming up on a Tuesday, August 1st, and she's going to be doing her software success. So I hope that you will tune in for her. And she, you know, she's just a wealth of information. She's just an absolute wizard. But if you never know when we're going to go live, then this is how you can subscribe to YouTube and like us on Facebook so that you never miss an episode. Let's see how you do that.
In this video, we'll show you how to subscribe to a YouTube channel and follow a Facebook page. Let's start with YouTube. First, open your web browser and navigate to youtube.com. Once you're on your home page, search for Designs in Machine Embroidery in the search bar at the top of the screen. Click on it and go to the channel page. Once on the channel page, click the subscribe button. And that's it. You're now subscribed to the channel. Now, let's move on to Facebook. Once you're on your home page, search for Designs in Machine Embroidery in the search bar at the top of the screen. When you find the page you want to follow, click on it and go to the page. Once on the page, click the three dots on the right side and select the follow button. And that's it. Now you're following the page. Thanks for watching.
So we hope that you'll do that. And let's see, Jennifer Alexander, she says that Ashley's lessons are awesome. Boy, she is a brilliant woman. So we love hearing that for sure. And August 3rd, actually next Thursday, Ashley's going to be here in my spot doing Between Friends. So hopefully you'll tune in and catch her twice next week. And then I'll be back the following week. Okay, so next thing we want to do is, you know, this is the time normally where we reveal the on the house, right? Well, this week is a little bit different. So we're going to teach a technique instead of really a project, because our project for this week is the fourth block in those 5 beachy blocks. And this one is Leave Nothing But Footprints. So I'm going to teach you how to do the reversible piecing, which enables you to quilt as you go. And if you've been making, you know, a block a week, then you have blocks that need to go together, right, Sue?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
Right. Okay, so let's go to the overhead cam and take a look at the reversible piecing technique. Now, this is something I came up with quite a long time ago. These are all individual blocks that were pieced, that were quilted and appliqued in the hoop. And then once all of that was done, they were trimmed with a 1/2-inch seam allowance outside of that stitching, and then pieced together what we call with sashing. And so here you can see the back, right? So sashing on the back and sashing on the front. The sashing on this quilt is a design element, right? The artist chose a color that would coordinate with all the blocks and really help define each block. And actually the same on the back. Now you could use the same fabric on the back so that it looks like a solid back, and you can also do the same on the front. And we'll take a look at that in a moment on another quilt. You can have a little bit of fun and piece your sashing so that you have skinnier pieces in some elements of the quilt. You could do the whole thing, or this is just the center and horizontal, center vertical and horizontal sashing strips. But you can see I incorporated that with solid fabric for the sashing and also for the back. And the back of this, I guess I don't have that turned properly for you, but here you can see it is, same thing, right? So a unique fabric for the sashing on the back and the block. So everything looks a little bit different. Now, this quilt looks like a whole cloth quilt. These are long columns where the applique and the quilting are evenly spaced about 1.5 inches apart on a long, I think, width of fabric, like 45-inch long strip. And then the sashing is actually right here, and it's the same fabric as the background block fabric. So when this hangs on the wall, it looks like this is one big quilt, one continuous, like a whole cloth quilt. The sashing is practically disappears. Now, I quilted these areas after it was all sashed together, and I'll show you what you mean, as you can see here. So here's my column, right? Long column. Now, I did this a long time ago, and I've since learned an awful lot about tying off and what color thread you should use on the back of the quilt and so forth. So forgive me if it's, kind of glaring, but this is a wall quilt. Nobody's ever going to look at the back, which is fine. But here you can see my sashing on the back, and this is just one long strip because my block is really just a long strip, a long column, not an individual block. So you do have a lot of freedom when it comes to, quilt as you go. It doesn't have to look so block by block. But let me show you the technique. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to stitch your block and then trim a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you're going to place your quilter's ruler on the outline, if there is an outline on the block. If there isn't, then you'll just place your quilter's ruler 1/2 inch line at the edge of stitching, the outermost edge. And you'll just do the same thing for each of the blocks that you make. And so now you can see I have my backing fabric, my battings inside, and so is, my quilt top. My seam allowance, the 1/2 inch, has all 3 elements, right? So it's thick, and that's important. Okay, then we're going to take sashing for the front of the quilt and sashing for the back of the quilt. And we're going to piece that together all in one pass. So we place the sashing, right sides together with the front, right sides together with the back, and so with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, Sue, we use a 1/2 inch seam allowance because we cut our blocks a 1/2 inch from the quilting outline. So that's important to know, right? So whatever is your seam allowance, whatever you cut, that's going to be how you sew. And then you're going to press open. So here is my block that I've pieced, and I'm going to press open only the top, just the top. And then I'm going to take my next block, and this is very important. You want to make sure that you align the blocks here. The edges of the blocks are perfectly aligned, and then you will sew to the sashing. And I'll just pin this in place real quick. And you got to make sure you're grabbing that sashing that's extending out from the other side. And I'm just going to pin right into where my stitch line would be. And then when I open that up, as you can see, that's what my sashing would look like.
Wow.
Yeah. And I have that done over here, right? Do I? Yeah. So here's the front sewn together. Here's the back, because now, we had block 1, and I think you were looking at it like this. Block 1, added sashing front and back, and then pressed open just the front sashing and added the second block. And then when you flip it over, those seam allowances meet. So this is solid batting in there. And then it's time to flip this over. And before we do that, I fold in that raw edge. Just fold it in just like that. And then I take a pin. And actually, I do spend a little bit of time at the ironing board. And I press that down. And you kind of have to pin it from the front. There we go. And you'll do the same here. And then when you stitch in the ditch right along here, it grabs all the sections together. Did I not finish one? That's okay. I have others to show. But that's how easy it is. So how wide do you cut your strips? Linda Schoen is asking, is the sashing 2 inches? Yes, the sashing in this 1/2 inch seam allowance is 2 inches. So just do a little math with me. It's not complicated. Whatever you want, whatever size you want your finished sashing to be, then you cut your strip twice that. So this is a 1 inch finished sashing. So I'm going to cut my strip 2 inches. And because it's a 1 inch finished strip, my seam allowance is going to be half of that, which is 1/2 inch. So just take a moment and absorb that math, because you can go skinny. Like on this instance, I used a 1/4 inch seam allowance here because these are small blocks with a lot going on. So if I had a wider sashing, it would overpower all the details that are happening inside. So in this case, the strip that I used was only 1 inch wide, just a 1 inch strip. So, and that's half of the 2 inch strip. Let me pull this one over. That's half of the 2 inch strip. And so people often say, gosh, why do you use that big 1/2 inch seam allowance, because quilters love a 1/4 inch. Well, that's true. But if you're a beginner or you're not real comfortable with all those layers of fabric, because you are piecing the 3 layers of fabric, then, go to a 1/2 inch. It's fine. It's fine. Go to a 1/2 inch. But if you are worried about scale, then go to 1 inch. And again, your finished sashing will be a 1/2 inch. Your seam allowance will be a 1/4 inch. So that's what I have cut. The blocks, the seam allowance on these blocks is just a 1/4 inch. Okay, so you get all your rows together, and then you use the very same technique to put the rows together. So you can see I've already started this. Now, it's important here to make sure the rows are aligned, because you could wind up with something like that, where, how frustrating. So you're either going to get out your seam ripper and rip it out, or you're going to sacrifice some of the block and, cut it off. I would get the seam ripper. So anyway, yeah, super fun, super easy. And then to finish it off, you can stitch in the ditch. You can edge stitch along the sashing. You could do just a serpentine line, whatever your desire is. Don't fuss about it, because this is just the piecing technique that allows the blocks to be the star. Everybody is looking at the blocks, not so much your sashing. Now, I have these other blocks to show you, because sometimes we want to use, we only want to quilt with batting and the top fabric. So here you can see I made these blocks with just batting, and I don't have any backing on it. I did trim them like just as I did in the other technique, and then I add a large backing fabric to it, and then I would stitch in the ditch and grab all of the sashing as one. That's just like a partial sample, but I thought I would show you these larger blocks so you can see that technique. So this is 2 blocks that I didn't use any backing on. I have batting on here, and I also have some piece and stitch. Is that what we call it? Piece and stitch? Yeah. Tearaway stabilizer. And then when I place my back fabric on, I'll just stitch in the ditch. But I have sashed them in this fashion. Makes it super easy. Let's see. Rhonda Martinez, you like to use the serpentine? Yeah, I do too. Super fun. Super fun. Let's bring Sue back up. What do you think, Sue? You can do this, right?
That is something I've always wanted to try, and I think we will, because that is a brilliant way of putting everything together.
It's really easy, really easy. So the math, you just have to get that math down, right?
I can do that math.
Yeah,
it's easy.
Yeah. Don't trim the blocks until you determine how wide you want your finished sashing. So think about it. Look at the blocks, measure the blocks. Oh, they're 5 inches. Well, you probably want a skinnier sashing. If they're larger, then for sure, go big. And then you just, once you have that, then double the width of the finished sashing and half the width of the finished sashing to determine your seam allowance and how much you'll cut off of the block. So
it makes perfect sense to me. I've read some things about how to do it, and I'm like, man, that's it. I don't want it. But that makes perfect sense. That's easy to do.
Well, thank you. All of our stipple collections and my book, Machine Embroidered Quilting in 80s lessons, or I don't know, I've read a lot of books, so I forget all the titles. But anyway, those instructions, they're the same ones. They've been in every one of our products. And Jennifer Alexander gives you a big vote of confidence. She says, you can do anything you put your mind to. You're awesome.
I am that. Thank you.
Yes, she is. Yeah, I love it. So much fun. Oh, and here's, Joanne Banco. Have you had the honor of meeting her yet? Sure you have, right? Yeah. Joanne is our friend over at Let's Go Sew. Thanks for your comment. Your compliment. I'm glad you enjoyed that technique. I haven't gotten in touch with her in quite a while, so it's nice to have her here. Let's see. So Jennifer Alexander, yep, 2-inch sashing, 1/2-inch seam allowance. Finished sashing was going to be 1 inch. And, you can go bigger. You got giant blocks, like 20-inch blocks, then do it for sure. Yeah, but it's fun. It's really fun. And so, it's nice to work block by block. You eventually get a big stack, and it's not that difficult to put them together.
I like it. I think it's brilliant.
Good. I'm glad. Well, I had one tip that I wanted to share over in PowerPoint. Did that get in here? Let me see. Yes. Okay. So if you have trouble maintaining seam allowance as you stitch in a straight line, you can use a stack of Post-it notes. Peel off the bottom layer that's not adhesive and just stick that to your sewing machine table. And, at the proper distance, you can measure with a ruler first. Maybe your machine has a laser or, all kinds of other measuring devices. But a stack of Post-it notes is really handy because you can run the edge of that quilt block and sashing right along it, and you'll get consistent seam allowance the whole length.
Perfect.
Yeah. A 6-inch block isn't that big of a deal, but when you're doing those long columns, maybe it's 6 blocks across and now they're in a long row. Well, that gets to be a lot of piecing. You might, if you're like me, you get distracted and all of a sudden it's not a 1/2 inch anymore. Right?
Yes, it happens to the best of us.
Okay, let's see. So Patch, let me see. Patch and Quilt wants to know, is there a way to make sure the joining strips get sewn back and front without showy on the front? Wonder what showy on the front means. Well, I'm going to assume that you mean, is there a way to capture the back sashing if you stitch in the ditch, right? I think that's what you mean. So yes, there is. So what you can do is wow, that's really busy fabric. That was a poor choice. But you can, instead of folding under a full 1/4 inch, you can fold under less. And then you'll make sure that you catch that back sashing as you stitch in the top, right in the ditch. And so like that stitching is almost invisible. And this stitching here is almost invisible. Like, in fact, you can't see it at all. It's right in the ditch. This one, I got a little lazy. You can see some of it. But, if you're using printed fabric like I do, it's very forgiving, very forgiving. And so Linda wants to know, is there batting on the sashing? Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's get a good look at that again so you can understand the whole technique I just showed you. There's batting in all of the seam allowances on all 4 sides of the block, even in here. So over here, my sashing meets my block meets right in the middle, and the batting is inside. So from the front, you don't feel that seam at all. You don't feel it. It just feels, well, that one's not finished, but it just feels like solid batting. There's no empty area. So, and that's key. That's really what you want, for sure.
I think a point I'd like to make is that a lot when we're stitching out quilt squares, we trim the batting a little bit smaller so it doesn't get in the seam allowance. If you're doing this technique, you leave it. You leave the batting where it is.
Okay, you're right. That's a different technique. You are right. Some people do that. In fact, I think our friends over at Hoop Sisters probably sell a ruler, maybe called the George ruler or something, where it helps you trim away the batting. Well, I don't trim the batting, you know. Well, and the reason why I don't is because I've tried that and I cut my blocks. I had to make new blocks. So, man, I'm not going that way. So let's see. Judy No has a great idea. Use invisible thread, right? Monofilament thread. Nobody will see it. Nobody will see it. So, yep. And Donna Marie Smith said the same thing when you stitch in the ditch. But, you know, you have to remember, folks, that when you are working at your machine and you're concentrating on that stitch, one in thousands and thousands and thousands of stitches on that quilt, when you move away from that machine, you're never going to identify that problem stitch again. It's gone. Even if it's not, it's gone. You know, so forgive yourself. We get so hung up, right, Sue?
I always tell people to stop and stand back and look at it. And I say the same thing. I guarantee you won't find your little itty bitty boo-boo. Just smile and carry on. It's not that bad.
Right. It's not. The 6 foot rule, you know, rules. It really does. So
it's the best. It's the best.
Yeah.
Because nobody is looking at our work like this, like we are, right?
Like we are our worst critics. And if you're giving a gift to someone who doesn't quilt or embroider, they have absolutely no idea about the issues you had or what you don't like about the quilt. So don't point it out. Definitely don't point it out.
No.
Okay. Well, I hope everybody takes advantage of the King Star special. We don't do that very often.
King Star, I'm so happy. I love the new colors. They are fantastic.
Oh, I'm so glad you approve, Sue.
Yes.
We always worry. Well, we do. You know, we pick them out and we hope everybody loves them. But this time, I think we nailed it for sure.
For sure.
Absolutely. So on Saturday, what time are you going to do the sew along?
10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
On the OML Embroidery the OML Embroidery YouTube channel. So 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Be there, be square, I say.
Be there, be square. Join the gang.
We have a lot of fun. The gang is a lot of fun. If you haven't seen a live with all of us, you don't know what you're missing. It's a lot of fun. So, and we're going to enjoy working on this new technique. This will be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have great success. I know you will. I have confidence in you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Sue, thank you for coming on. I know you'll be back next month, right?
Yes, absolutely.
We're coming into the Sue's favorite time of year, you know, which is Halloween approaching. So eventually we'll get to all that fun stuff.
I can't wait. I can't wait. It's always exciting.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Come back next week for Ashley.